Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Winsight Live. I'm John Springer. We'll start it off today, this morning's Walmart news. The company reported second quarter financial results, 9.5% US sales increase, 97% e-commerce increase. US comps up 9.3%, reflecting a 27% basket increase. People were spending that stimulus money on TVs and electronics and other goods at the store, but a 14% traffic decline, and really a signal of the paradoxical nature of pandemic shopping here. They faced a lot of questions from analysts who were concerned that 9.3% US comps, or what they said, high single digit fresh food comps and mid-single digit grocery comps, were below what their competitors in conventional grocery were seeing. And does this mean that they're losing market share to them? And Walmart's response was, we held our pricing steady. So it's a weird thing. It feels like Walmart's widening the price gaps, but losing share at the same time in the grocery fight, at least for the time being. Over to you, Phil.
So, John, do you think that Kroger's announcement that they're going to try to compete with Amazon and Walmart is going to change the dynamics, whether it's at Kroger or at Walmart?
I guess that's all part of it, right? Kroger's got big ambitions in digital, and adding the marketplace was a big deal for them. I think it turns Kroger Ship from something that people were probably using fairly infrequently to something that they might use a little more often. Walmart spoke today about one of the benefits they saw this quarter was that their marketplace did so well that it lessened the losses that their overall e-commerce is doing. So there's probably a profit element to that as well. And for the time being, Kroger is intending to sort of play in that space where you can buy anything on their website.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I just hope they don't lose their focus on bricks and mortar as they're trying to do all of this. One benefit out of COVID-19, it looks like our food waste is going down. In Britain, for example, in April, they had 14% of food waste. Bread, chicken, milk, and potatoes. Before the pandemic, it was up at 24%. Also, in Germany, their Food and Agriculture Ministry has a new campaign called Too Good for the Bin. And what they're doing is they're saying, don't automatically throw food away after the sell-by date. Smell it and taste it to see if it was still in good condition. I should remind them that you can't smell or taste bacteria. Probably not a good idea. Also, when it comes to food waste, big controversy in China. So there's a national campaign also in China against food waste. There was a beef restaurant who put two large scales at the entrance to the restaurant. Then they asked everybody who came in to enter their measurements into an app and weigh yourself, and then they would suggest menu items so that you would lose weight. Their signs say, be thrifty and diligent, promote empty plates. It's called Operation Empty Plate. And there's a big uproar on Chinese social media as a result. What they've done is the Wuhan Catering Industry Association, who knew, urged restaurants in the city to limit the number of dishes that are served to diners. The system is where you have to order one dish fewer than the number of people who are coming into the restaurant. But here's the good news. There was over 300 million hashtags about how unfair this restaurant was on social media, and the restaurant had to say they were deeply sorry for its interpretation, and the scales are gone. One thing from one of our editors, Al Heller, wrote me a note this morning, and this leads right into what John and Brett are going to talk about. This past weekend, my ShopRite cashier, and Al is on Long Island, rang up and bagged my groceries, then put his head down as if to rest momentarily while I paid. I asked if he felt okay. He said he was just tired. He explained he had worked at the store till 1 a.m. that morning, then had to be back in the store by 5:45 a.m. Let's talk about autonomous stores. John, why don't you kick it off?
Sorry, autonomous stores. Yeah, I had a interview with Steve Gu, who is the founder and CEO of a company called AiFi. AiFi kind of burst onto the scene last year by making these trailer-sized autonomous stores that were completely unmanned. Small selection, obviously, but there was one at Ahold Delhaize used in their Albert Heijn chain. That is moved to now to the airport in Amsterdam that they're using. There's about a dozen of them out now, but their news is there's going to be 300 of these by next year. Not necessarily the trailer size stores, but what they're calling Oasis, which is the operating system for them, which is going to be able to retrofit stores of different sizes. They're very confident about a pretty fast expansion of this, and we're seeing other companies that are making these announcements all the time now. As he said, autonomy is getting into every bit of the world now, and your grocery store is just going to be one of them.
And Brett, same thing is happening in C-stores, right?
Yeah, it really is. So I remember when Chicago's Amazon Go store opened up, and for CSP, we went there, we did a visit there, and I was like dumbfounded. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. The fact that you could just take something and leave was just mind-boggling to me. But it's spreading across the C-store industry. Most recently, Alimentation Couche-Tard, the parent company for Circle K, the second largest C-store chain in North America, they've launched touchless autonomous checkout technology for its stores. They're debuting this at a store in Tempe, Arizona, in the Phoenix area, with other stores to follow. So essentially, customers can walk in, take what they like, walk out without having to scan or anything or wait and pay in line. For Circle K specifically, they're going to have ceiling-mounted cameras, as well as proprietary AI and machine vision learning software to associate each shopper with the items they pick up. Just crazy stuff. So big news for the C-store industry here, and Circle K and the supplier that they are working for this autonomous checkout with, Standard Cognition. They said there's going to be more for it, and this company specifically is really interested in the C-store sector. So watch out.
So, when we go back to that ShopRite cashier that had 4 hours and 45 minutes off, including the time to go home, I mean, is the future of C-stores and grocery stores going to be less labor? And if they are less labor, what happens to all those people? Where are they going to get jobs? Jen, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, well, we were just talking about this, as a team the other day, that, I know that Kroger and others have already started cutting way back on hours for many of their employees because, as things kind of return to a more normal, quote unquote shopping experience. So I'm not, I know many of these people took jobs, on a temporary basis, knowing that it wasn't going to be permanent. But I know others like Wegmans had said, get in now and we will keep you. So I'm not sure, as we kind of return to a more stabilized shopping experience, what is going to happen to all those workers who were hired during COVID-19.
Yeah, and Marks and Spencer over in the UK announced, I think it was late yesterday, that because of people not buying clothes, they have to lay off 7,000 workers in the Marks and Spencer stores. So that's interesting. So, Kat, why don't you give us some good news about independent grocers here?
Yeah, so independents are doing really well. NGA and FMS recently released their 2020 financial survey. So it took a look at what was going on with indies in 2019. And then they also did kind of a follow-up to see what was happening since the pandemic hit. But in 2019, indies saw a 2.5% same store sales increase, and more than 50% of operators said that increase was higher than it had been in the previous year. So sales were starting to creep up for them at the same time that labor costs and costs like rent and utilities went down slightly. So that allowed them to have a little bit more money to invest in their stores, which they did. So the capital expenditure that the independents did went up by about 2% of store sales in 2019, which allowed indies to invest in things like e-commerce, which turned out to be very fortuitous for them once the pandemic hit. So 64% of independents invested in e-commerce in 2019, which was up from just 32% in 2018. So they really took a deep dive into that, which proved to be very beneficial, as we all know, because once the pandemic hit in March, then everybody turned to e-commerce, and indies were actually well positioned to meet those needs. And total store sales are now up 13.3% for the first 6 months of 2020. So they made some good moves last year.
Yeah, terrific news. And Jen, you took a look at IRI's latest study.
Yeah, so they looked at what the stimulus check money and unemployment benefit boost did to grocery sales. And it was interesting, of the 9 in 10 Americans who received the first round of stimulus checks, 27% spent that on grocery and household essentials. But then I was thinking, when John was talking about Walmart's, people going in and buying TVs, the other interesting thing was mass merchants did a little bit better than grocery and online grocery, which were tied for percentage of, money spent there, people spending more money in those places. So I'm wondering if some people are considering household essentials TVs, but hopefully not.
Well, right now, yeah, because everybody's home and
there's nothing else. There's nothing else to do. But in terms of grocery, that 27% spending more. I mean, that the only thing that beat out grocery spending was, rent, mortgage, which makes sense, and then savings, which I was kind of surprised that many people were in a position to put that money into savings for a rainy day. But meat and, all kinds of meat and fresh produce were the clear winners in terms of people said that they were spending more on that with their stimulus money than they had in the past. And then IRI also found that those, if there isn't if and when there's a second stimulus check, even more people said that they would be spending more on meat and fresh produce. And they also said that if the unemployment benefits were decreased, which they have been since IRI did the study, which was July 31st to August 2nd, that they, the first things to go would be snacks, fresh food, convenience food, like packaged meals, that kind of thing.
Interesting. Walmart, remarked that the sales boost that they got out of stimulus had already begun to recede by, July. And I didn't want to, mislead anybody. It wasn't just TVs, but they also mentioned, home and outdoor goods, apparel, some of these other things that kind of were really kind of stuck at the NBA. Sporting goods did very well, in the quarter. But Jen's right. I mean, who knows what's coming here? And again, with the pricing thing, it's only a matter of time, I think, before people's budgets get really tight, and then we're going to see a different kind of pattern emerge.
And John, you wrote a piece on one of my favorite retailers in the country, Heinen's. What was that about?
Heinen's announced this week that they're completing a rollout of AI-enhanced fresh item management in their stores. And this uses a company called I call it Afresh is the name of the company. It's kind of hard to say. I want to call it AiFresh. They are a San Francisco-based AI company that has kind of taken an approach to not only how you order and perpetual inventory and all those other things, applying AI to those things in the fresh departments, but associated way of working in the produce department that utilizes tablets and makes it easy for people in the departments. And so they sort of work together as a little bit of a secret sauce there. It's kind of old school produce workers and new school technologies kind of coming together. They were talking about eye-popping numbers and shrink reduction, easier for the employees to do, potential labor savings, much better in-stock conditions and fewer less shrink. So that's coming around. That same technology launched last year in Fresh Time stores, also in the Midwest. And another symbol of how artificial intelligence is changing the way retailers do things.
But with all that change, we've still got to remember we still need human beings that can taste food, that can pick food, and probably the chain that does that among the best, at least in my opinion, is Whole Foods with their foragers. Jen, tell us a bit more about that program.
No, I think now more than ever, local was already, we just talked about some of these things that were huge trends before the pandemic, but I think local's even hotter now because for a variety of reasons, supply of getting foods from elsewhere, challenges to that, people wanting to support their local economy when things are so rough, and just sort of a trust in something being from your backyard, and Whole Foods really does a great job. They've got these local foragers, they call them, in all of their regions. They're full-time employees who they call them part seeker, part guide, because they really work with, they'll identify a local product that's innovative or cool, and they'll work with that supplier to kind of get them up and running, or they'll work with incubators to help develop local companies. And then they also have a loan program to fund these companies and really get them started. And then in store, they do such a great job of calling out local products. I mean, I can't think of, the produce department in a lot of stores will, feature a photo of the farmers, at their farm to try to get you to, feel connected to the local produce. But Whole Foods really does this throughout the store. I mean, they do it center store, they do, beauty, health and beauty, wellness. And they'll have these photos of the supplier and a little story. And, I think that especially now that connects people to the products in their communities, and it's really resonating.
I had a conversation with a Whole Foods forager probably about 3-4 years ago. And up until that point, to be honest with you, really didn't even know about the program. I knew that they had people that were out there, but he really explained it. And what he also said to me is he had basically unlimited power to do all the things that you talked about. Find a product, he could get it on the shelf, he could give them money, can help them with merchandising, all that other stuff. I think it's just such a great program. And to your point that we're starting to see more and more local, one of my concerns, and actually Whole Foods was caught on this, as were a bunch of other retailers, those pictures in the produce department that it shows, John as the potato farmer, doesn't mean that those potatoes were John's. They just had all these pictures of all these farmers that, yes, they're buying from, but the picture over that bag of potatoes wasn't necessarily, just from John. So I hope that all these retailers are getting a little better and a little smarter at it, and not, misleading us and, putting money in John's pocket when it shouldn't be there because it wasn't his potatoes.
It's funny, it reminds me of the, here in the New York market, we've been seeing a lot of television commercials. ShopRite has started a campaign here where they're, commercials that are featuring the farmer, and not just the family farmer, but the family ShopRite owner who is talking about their business. And it's a very effective little way to kind of highlight both these things. And then that's a new effort from ShopRite this year, it looks like.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that campaign, but it's brilliant because when you really think about what shoppers want today, they want credibility. They want to know where their food is coming from. And certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw a lot of CEOs of major chains going out there reassuring people. But in the case of ShopRite, where you have, somebody or a family that might own one ShopRite, or in the case of Village, dozens of stores, even more than that, especially now with Fairway, putting a face to that retailer, I think is really important. So Jen, why don't you wrap us up with some good news?
Absolutely. So Smart and Final just wrapped up their annual campaign to raise money for Olive Crest. which is an organization that's dedicated to fighting child abuse and educating at-risk kids. And they did a cool thing this year, with all of the financial struggles that many people are facing right now. They, anyone who donated, in store $5 to Olive Crest, at least $5, would get a coupon for $5 off $25 on their next shopping visit. So Smart and Final kind of, took care of the donations. And so they actually raised 20% more this year than they did last year, and just delivered a check to Olive Crest for $576,000.
Wow.
Over $576,000. So very nice.
Wow. That's very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you all for joining us today on Winsight Live. Again, past archives on Winsight, CSP, Restaurant, and Supermarket Guru. We will be back Thursday. Brett's going to be off camping in the mountains. Jen's going to be off taking her daughter back to college. But the rest of us will be here, and Pat will be joining us as well. So have a great week. You know what I'm going to say, wear a mask, and we'll see you on Thursday.